The worst possible outcome is not always the most important one. People often give too much weight to dramatic possibilities and too little weight to actual probability. Why does this happen? Let's look at the reasons one by one. Number one reason why this happens is availability bias. Availability bias is when any vivid or recent examples come to mind quickly and influence your judgment more than they should. For example, after seeing news of a plane crash, people start overestimating the dangers of flying, despite its statistical safety as compared to any other alternative which is out there. But because those incidents are high impact, people give them more weight than what they should. Second reason why this happens is probability neglect. As human beings, we are not conditioned to think in terms of probabilities because probability is always uncertain. But it doesn't help in real life when we are trying to come to a decision. So always ask yourself, probability versus possibility. What is probability? The probability is estimated chances of an event happening, and possibility is if there is any chance or any possible occurrence of an event happening. Even a 0.00001 probability is a possibility. So does a 0.0001 probability should have equal weightage as compared to any other higher probable events? That's the question you need to ask yourself. Of course, the correct answer is that you need to give higher weightage to more probable events and lesser weightage to possible events, but which are having low probability. It is a more a mathematical way of thinking, and if you keep thinking like this, then if you take 10 shots, there is a more likelihood that you will be right 6 times out of 10 or 7 times out of 10. So your success rate will always be higher if you rely on probability as compared to possibility. Third reason why this happens is catastrophizing, or what we call as worst case scenario thinking. It is when our mind jumps to the worst case scenario and starts treating it as if it is a very likely outcome. Our minds are geared to this thinking because in the early years, and I'm sure when people would go for hunting, the worst case scenario was essential for survival. But in those times, if you would hear a rustle of the leaves, you definitely should expect a worst case scenario because it can be a lion or a tiger hunting you down, or it can be a deer. So rather than looking at the source of the rustle of leaves, you should run. The first reaction should be to consider the worst case scenario and run away from the spot so that you have maximum chances of survival. I'm sure there were people who would have thought otherwise, and most of them would have been eliminated from the gene pool for obvious reasons. But in modern times, this survival thinking leads us to catastrophizing, and we start treating worst case scenario as the most likely ones, which leads us to wrong decisions most of the times. Now, when we have discussed all these three biases, where do we see this occurring? So, for example, investors. We see this in finance. Investors overreact to recent market crash or market volatility. It leads them to panic selling, or they start being overly cautious with their investment decisions. They do not start thinking rationally in terms of whether this situation or this market crash will be for a long time, or will the situations improve in some time or not, and their investment profile goes from moderate risk to low risk to extremely safe. They would start parking their money in fixed rate of return instruments, which is like a bank fixed deposits or debt instruments, which does not lead to higher returns in the long term. So I will say the possibility of a disaster is not the same as the probability of a disaster. If you confuse the two, fear will start making decisions for you.